All right, the date is May 26th, 2021. The time is 9:10 a.m. I'm Corporal Martin with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office School Resource Officer Unit. This statement is going to be in reference to case number 2105-014-215. Location of this interview is, you state your name, ma'am?
Lauren Hertz.
Lauren Hertz, going to be Lauren, last name Hertz, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, your date of birth is 1/18 of 1984?
Yes.
You currently reside at 455 Boundary Boulevard, Rotunda West, 33947?
Yes.
And your phone number is 707-845-4006?
Yes.
Excellent. Lauren, are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
No.
Okay. Do you know the meaning of perjury?
Yes.
Okay. Perjury can be committed by telling lies or omitting information while under oath, and it's a crime in the state of Florida to commit perjury. Do you understand what I've explained to you about perjury?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to taking the statement, I'm going to place you under oath. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the statement you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, you can lower your hand. So you're here today in reference to an incident that happened yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
All right. In your own words, can you just start from the beginning and just give me the story about what took place over there?
Sure. So my son, Matthew Hertz, is a fourth grader. He is a boundary walker. Both of my children have been boundary walkers for the duration of their time. And I got a phone call from a neighbor saying they had seen a suspicious individual on the corner of the school and boundary, and their opinion was that I should not let my son, my younger son, walk. So I immediately left and started walking towards the corner to meet him there, or to figure out whether or not this was true, and saw the man on the opposite corner from me. So I'm horrible with direction, but the south, I think, side of boundary, that would have been corner. And as I was walking up, he turned the sign and started yelling at me. I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I saw his sign right away, and I said, "Sir, you can't, you got to turn that sign around. You're on school, like right next to an elementary school. It's inappropriate." And he told me to, say this point, F off cunt at that point, and I realized that there was probably no conversation worth having with this man. So I said, "This is really inappropriate. You need to stop. Please turn it around. At the very least, turn it around. I get that you have the right to protest, but turn it around." He started showing it more, and then at that point, several cars started pulling in and making comments of their own to him, and he started yelling "F off cunt," "stupid bitch," expletives.
Let me stop you right there. So you guys are on the opposite side of the crosswalk, correct? And you guys are yelling across.
Yes.
And you say cars are pulling in
to pick up their kids.
All right. Are any of these cars stopping or
Yes.
engaging with them as well?
Some, I think the initial reaction was to see what was on the sign, and then realizing what was on the sign, saying, "That's so inappropriate." And at that point, I hadn't heard. I was pretty peaceful on their part. "This is inappropriate. Please don't do this here. I don't want my child to see this. Can you please leave?" And he just continued to yell expletives, or it was the most descriptive expletives I've heard in a while. So
he's yelling at the cars as well.
And then they pull in afterwards, and then it kept happening over and over with different various cars. At this point, I'm watching this happening, and I immediately figure out he keeps putting his hand in his little fanny pack little bag that he had around his waist, and he keeps putting his hand in and grabbing something, and then pulling it out, and then grabbing something as if he was like being threatened by the cars in preparation. And so I didn't like that motion, so I walked immediately up to, I saw Dr. Hedzina and the SRO, and I forgot her name, I know she's new, but I forgot her name, standing up at the top of the crosswalk, the second crosswalk, and they saw me.
Is that up by the gate?
By the gate, actually right by the gate.
Okay.
So I walk up, they met me there, and I said, "This guy is not okay. Like, we can't release these kids." And I said, "I'm here for Matthew, but there are other walkers that I know of, and they don't have parents meeting them. There's no way for these parents to know they work." And she said, "Well, what do you think I should, what should I do here?" And I said, "I would not release the kids. I would call the parents and let them know what's going on, or wait until this guy is taken away. I'm not sure." Heron Hangout came up with a couple different ideas. And she said, "Well, he has the right to protest." I said, "I understand that, but you also have in loco parentis, and we trust you that our kids will at least be given the opportunity to leave the school safely, and they're not able to." And I, at that time, turned to the SRO officer, and I said, "We need a police presence right now." And she said, "They're on it." And I said, "Okay, well, in the time I've stood here, they could have been here. So we need them here, and do not release these children." And then at that point, Dr. Hedzina said to me, "Would you like me to get your son?" And I sort of was uncomfortable with that, because I'm not of large stature, and I didn't even really want any interaction with this guy, with myself or my son. But then I said, "That's fine. Let's go ahead and do that." And I did state that I had to go to work. And so in my head, I believe they would be walking with me. The SRO would walk with me to the corner, because that in my head made sense, so that we would at least be able to make it past the corner and down towards our home. I was also concerned with the fact that from the corner, you could directly see my front door. So he would see where I walked. Now, he had made a lot of comments that were unclear. To me, I can't give a direct quote, but he had said things that I looked like a Jew when I walked to the corner. He was yelling across the cars at me. And this one over here, and I assume that's me, looks like a Jew. I'm Italian, I have olive skin. I could see how that could be thought. And I was a little nervous about him knowing where I lived at that point. They went and got my child, Matthew. He came out. I said to him, I want you to keep, your hands over your ears, and I want you not to look at the sign. And I began to walk down, and the SRO didn't follow. And I said, are you coming? And she said, well, they're down there. And I said, okay, that's all right. So we started walking down, and what I saw was the police officers parked across boundary on the grass median side and remaining in their cars. I got a lot more nervous at that point because at that point he saw me walking down. He moved directly across the crosswalk to my corner so that I would have to pass him, and it's a very tight corner. And I did a motion like this, like to the police officers, like, can you come out? He's moving towards me, and I had stopped on the sidewalk, and none of them got out of their car. And then at that point, I got a little bit of a fuck it attitude. And I said, all right, if this guy's going to come at me, then we're going to do this, and that's how this is going to go. And I told my son, if or anything happens at this point, you're to run into the trees or back to the school. You're not to engage. Don't run home, run to the school. And he said, I got it. So we continued to walk. He took 2 steps forward to directly block my path. And that's where my video starts for you. You can see.
So just kind of retract a little bit. As you're leaving the school, he comes across from where he was originally standing and stands right in front of you to confront you.
Yeah, from the opposite side of the crosswalk, directly over to confront me and my child.
Blocking your path,
Blocking
in the sidewalk and crosswalk.
I could still walk around him on the sidewalk, as anyone could, but he was making it difficult to do. And there were comments at that point about me being a Jew and deserving to die because I look like a Jew and getting on a train. I'm not sure of the terminology. Getting on a train like the rest of the Jews to die. Already at this point in front of my child. And that's when I started my video because to me, in a lot of ways, that was one of the worst parts of it. Now, he had pictures of Officer Kermel, who was my son's former teacher, on his poster, which is one of the reasons why I really didn't want him to see that. He wouldn't be able to understand what Pornhub or whatever was, but he saw his teacher's face. And I was concerned with the comments in respect to a nationality, anti-Semitism.
Are you Jewish?
My husband is. So my children are half Jewish. And we do very minimal, we're not going to temple, or synagogue or anything like that, but they recognize as being half Jewish. So I look Mediterranean, but my son has blonde hair with brown eyes. He does not look it. So that was the part that bothered me, that interaction. Because people, when it comes to hate crimes and stuff like that, they feel validated in their beliefs and nationality, and they'll take it to great lengths. So I made that motion continuously as I was walking down the sidewalk to the officers, and they had their windows up. I don't know what they were doing at that point, watching and seeing, and I felt like a guinea pig in that moment. And so we made it to the corner, and that's where my video starts. And I asked him very nicely, I said, please, sir, you need to turn around the sign. My son has nothing to do with this. I'll read it. I've read it. Turn your sign around. No, he needs to see. Your little Jew children need to see. He started saying comments, and my son looked up at me, and I'm like, just keep your ears covered. We're going to make it around. So we stepped around, stepped back. He stepped onto the grass and went around him, and I continued walking.
Your son had to step onto the grass?
He stepped onto the grass to get around him. And there, unfortunately, is a sewer slough there.
Right.
So that's dangerous, but he navigated that fine, and I kept walking in the same in the same manner that I was. I guess at this point, I wanted to know, how close this man was willing to get to me. And he blocked my path, so I did have to sidestep around him. And once I made sure that my son was around the corner, I turned around and said, this is, and it's in the video, I said, this is inappropriate. I said, people are actually laughing at you right now. They're not agreeing with you. They're not being educated by you. They're laughing. You're being a bad human at this point. And he called me in front of my son. Well, he told me, you and your Jew children need to get on the train and die. And he said, you're a shut up cunt. You should die. I think, along those lines, it's all in the video. You need to die, cunt, die. You dumb bitch. And he went on and on. And my son at this point had his ears open and was listening to this man call me that. And he was getting upset. And I said, it's just words, just keep walking. And I had my son walking behind me, but I kept my face, I was walking backwards to continue facing the guy. I wanted to make sure. And then once we were safely past him, I'd say about 20 feet, I turned off my video. And at that point, he took a few more steps forward and leaned in towards my son and made eye contact and said, I'm going to light you on fire, just like your ancestors, little Jew boy. And
how far away was he from your son?
We were about 20 feet away.
Yeah.
And then he ran forward a few steps because I had stopped the video and turned around to see where my son was. And when I turned around, he was there. He was probably about 5 feet away at this point. And he had leaned in. And from my son at that point, I'd say 5 feet, because he kept taking steps back. But it's the manner in which he leaned down and looked right at him and said, I'm going to light you on fire like your ancestors, little Jew boy. At that point, I immediately got upset and more upset. And I was prepared to throw down with this man. I was going to hit him with his own sign. And I made I got very rigid and I made a motion to step forward towards him. And at that point, I saw your officer step out and we made eye contact. And I knew in that moment that I was more afraid of getting in trouble myself. They seemed to recognize that some interaction had taken place in which I was now going to be a mother that snapped.
Right.
And I just decided in that moment that it wasn't worth my time. And I continued to walk backwards home watching, keeping my eye on him. And we continued our way home. Now I saw him turn around and look at us as I walked in my house. So then at that point I got really uncomfortable because now he knows where I live.
Right.
And you're obviously not, he's not in custody. So he knows where I live and he knows that, or thinks that I'm Jewish, based on the way that I look. So I feel unsafe. Not so much in the fact I know how to defend myself. My father made sure I did. I don't own a gun though. I don't have one in the house. And that bothers me because I wish I did in this moment. I know how to use other weapons, but I don't have that in my house. So I don't have any way to defend us other than with my hands or kitchen knife.
Well, let's kind of go back through this a little bit. As this is all happening, how are you feeling? Do you feel like you're intimidated? Do you feel like he's just there peacefully protesting? Do you feel like he's trying to egg you into a fight? How are you feeling when this is going down?
I've been around peaceful protests, and there is chanting, there is information being given. This was all aggression. I felt threatened. I'm not an easily threatened person. I felt threatened. I felt that I was willing to put my life on the line to protect my child. I felt like flight or fight the entire time. There was no part at which I felt that I was being educated or given information only. I was being threatened. And my child was being directly threatened. And also he kept reaching into his bag and putting his hand on something. And it looked distinctly like he was holding onto a firearm. And later on, after watching his podcast, realized he had mace. And that's a weapon for me as a mother with children around. You hit them with mace, they can't see, they're on a road. It hurts too. And he kept putting even with me, he kept putting his hand into his back bag to prepare himself every time I took a step forward. So I felt threatened the whole time. There was no point at which I felt he was peacefully protesting.
Okay. So after you leave, you see us exiting the car and preparing to do what we're going to do. Did anything else happen that you can remember? You make it back to your house?
I made it back to my house. I didn't feel very comfortable with you guys in general because I wanted you to have more of a presence on the sidewalk with me. He didn't appear to be intimidated in the least by any of you. He was flipping your officers off. He was yelling, F the police. He was calling you dumb idiots. I mean, he was doing a lot of name calling to you directly. So I don't feel that he had felt intimidated by your presence alone. And that's why I literally wanted one of you there in proximity in case he did try to hit me or my child. Because I would hit back, but I am a little person. And I needed to know that somebody would be able to break that up before damage was done. So,
right. And going to kind of like the totality of everything, you felt that he was aggressive.
Yes.
Did you feel that your child's safety may have been
absolutely
affected by his actions and his conduct?
Yeah, it was absolutely directly compromised. He threatened my son directly to light him on fire, like the little Jew boy that he is. In any respect, whether religion, nationality, whatever, the word light you on fire is in an aggressive nature at that is not okay. That's a direct threat to myself and to my son, which I was surprised, directly to my son. We were threatened the whole time. And I had no other choice but to walk him. And unfortunately, other children were beginning to come out of the school. And I don't know what happened in regards to the other walkers. But if they had to walk by that gentleman, he would not have the respect to just stand there peacefully while they walked by with the option to read his sign or not. He was interacting with children within proximity of an elementary school in an aggressive manner.
Okay. So obviously we're still investigating everything. If through our investigation we find that a crime has occurred, do you wish to prosecute?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
No. Well, yes. So obviously he has not been apprehended or brought in. Like I said, he knows directly where I live. Is there any sort of increased presence in the area
Absolutely.
that we can do? I know you're right there. I'm right next to the school with you guys there, but I'm worried about the other times.
Yeah.
Like him walking.
We'll discuss some options for you once we're off tape about,
Okay, awesome.
about protection orders and how that process goes.
Great.
But pertaining directly to this case, is there anything that you have questions about?
No.
Okay. Is everything you told me true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to add, change, or delete from what you told me?
There was a moment, yes. There was a moment when we were on opposite sides of the crosswalk where he called me a Jew. And I can't remember and recall whether or not I admitted to that, or not. I have some sort of a recollection of saying, yeah, and so what? Or something along those lines. And so I may have done that to myself by admitting that we were indeed, not just based on how I look. And I can't remember whether or not I did. And that That's the only. And I think that I might have given him that
Okay.
ammunition.
All right. So he may have known.
Yes.
All right. Well, anything other than that? Is there anything
No.
you want to add, change, or delete?
No.
All right. The time is now 9:32 a.m. on the same date, and the statement is going to be concluded.